It's always a pleasure to do things like the Combine when we can hang out with our friends. Always good to see Greg Cosell of NFL Films in person. You know him, of course, from the ESPN Matchup Show, NFL Films. We do a little podcast. It's called The Install. You could get it every Wednesday, as a matter of fact. Hey, bud.
How are you?
We're swell. Thriving.
Are you swell?
Listen,
That's not a word you hear very often these days.
Because, one, I got to see my basketball team win last night, Greg, which puts me
has not been happening a whole lot lately.
An infinitely better mood, yes, as I know you're well aware. But
I am well aware.
I promised the audience, because I did 12 minutes of Indiana basketball talk to open a Nashville Sports Talk radio show, I promised them I'd move on. But I'm in a good mood. It's always good to see people. It's a great time up here in Indy. Of course, football is at the forefront of everything, and did good interviews with Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan today. I know you got to meet Brian for the first time.
That was really good, and hopefully we can stay in touch and talk a little ball.
Absolutely, and that's what we plan to do here. But before we talk a little ball, bud, you and I did a live show end of May last year?
Mid-May last year after the draft.
Mid-May last year. I would say that it was well received at the Analog. We did an Install live show.
At the Hutton Hotel, yeah.
We had a big time. It was a good crowd. Everybody seemed to enjoy.
Big crowd.
Big crowd, as we will continue to remind people that it was a big crowd. What do you think about doing it again?
I'm up for it. I'm ready to go.
Are you up for it? Do we have any kind of fanfare back there, Jackson? Any kind of crappy sports talk radio production? Let's do another install. Let's do another install live. Okay, relax with the crappy production.
Right.
How about I'm gonna be home tomorrow. You better watch it back there. All right. You got any plans Friday, May 3rd?
I believe I'll be in Nashville.
I believe you will as well, because we will be hosting the second. Maybe this is an annual thing. The second annual Install Live show with yourself, with me, with a cast of hundreds, and I think some participation from the Titans that we are expecting.
Which will be awesome. That'll be awesome.
Which will be really, really cool. The tickets are available at 1045thezone.com. It's going to be, again, at the Hutton Hotel, the Analog venue, which I know you really enjoyed.
I really enjoyed it. Great hotel.
And great production staff there. They really did it up to the nines. We are really, really fired up about this. And just for the audience who didn't get to attend last year, we did it after the draft, so we had the full draft class to talk about.
Is, I think, a really good way to go, because now you know who the Titans drafted and who are going to be Titans. You know, the best part to me, and hopefully we get a crowd, the same crowd and even bigger, was just the interaction with the audience. You know, to me, that was the most fun. A lot of great questions. You know, and you know, I'm hoping that happens again, because that was so much fun.
Yeah, it was. We did it. Hell, we did for 3 hours. We could have gone.
I know we could have gone longer.
We could have gone a lot longer for the sake of everybody who wanted to get to bed or maybe go out afterwards, the way that some of us did. I know Greg did not partake.
Right.
I absolutely.
No, I did not go down to Lower Broadway after that.
I just a little tin roof.
I've done Lower Broadway. Yeah,
and you'll do it again for the end for the SEC tournament.
I will be for the SEC tournament, absolutely.
Which we look forward to as well. But this is it's a pretty unique event that Greg and I got the chance to do last year. We're really grateful for the station for facilitating it again. I know it's going to be awesome. I know we're going to have an even bigger crowd with even more engaging questions. And the way that we broke it down is we had 3 different segments. We had 3 different audience Q&As after each segment that we did.
Yep.
We had some TV copy. Maybe I'll even go the extra mile and get you some All-22 this year. So
that would be awesome.
So we could do it for real.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, with a little bit more ramp up. I think all things are possible, Greg.
And we even had Slay there for a little bit too.
Well, we had to have somebody to do it.
Right.
And then he can take the lukewarm vodka shots himself and not subject the rest of us to that, because that's what Slade typically does. But yes, May the 3rd. Get your tickets now at 1045thezone.com. There's going to be dinner, drinks, prizes, all kinds of fun, and of course the best NFL breakdown with the best in the business, the main man, Greg Cosell. So with that, you want to talk a little prospects?
Let's do that.
So you got into offensive line a little bit with 3HL.
I did.
And, of course, Greg is regularly on 3HL as well on Thursdays. You spent some time talking about Joe Alt, the left tackle from Notre Dame, who Titans fans have obviously familiarized themselves with. Anybody who needs offensive line help has familiarized themselves with Joe Alt at this point. And you said something to the effect of that you weren't as in love with his tape as a lot of the hype that I'm sure you've seen on social media and things like that. So I'd just like you to expand.
And I just want to preface that I think what people need to understand, and I had to learn this, by the way, when I started doing college players years and years ago, is number one, nothing's black and white. In other words, a guy's not either an all-pro or can't play. It's not one or the other. And number two, no one comes into the NFL as a finished product. They're college players. So when they come into the NFL, they still have to be coached. They have to be taught certain things. They all have some kind of flaw in their game that needs to be worked through. And if you see a flaw on tape, it doesn't mean a guy can't play. Okay? So what I saw on tape with Alt, and I've had conversations since I saw it, because I've watched a ton of Alt. I actually watched him last summer with his 2022 tape. So I've seen a lot of games of Alt. He's passive with his hands. He's not a guy who strikes with his hands. And again, different O-line coaches have different ways they teach. There's different philosophies. Some coaches don't necessarily believe in constantly striking with your hands. Others believe that's absolutely critical. But he was more passive than aggressive with his hands. As I said, I'm not an O-line coach, but I would like to see guys be more aggressive with the way they use their hand strikes. And I'm just... that concerned me a little bit as he transitions to the league, because obviously you have to play against high-quality pass rushers, and if you're not strong or aggressive with your hands and you let guys kind of work through and get into your chest, then you're done. You could weigh 500 pounds, and if guys get into your chest, they move you.
Which is something that I think it particularly resonates with Titans fans, Greg, because you and I talk about Andre Dillard and Jalen Duncan a lot, or at least we have in the last calendar year. And the basically being late with their hands is something that subjected Dillard basically his entire career to susceptibility to bull rush and things like that as a pass rush technique. And I think when Titans fans hear that, it's not like he can't be coachable and he can't learn new techniques, and that's not what you're saying at all.
I had an offensive line guy I respect tremendously basically tell me that, yes, what you say is true, but you can also still be a good player. Now, that may well be true. That's the great thing about, for me, talking to so many people, trying to keep learning is, I've developed my thoughts over the years just from study, from talking to a lot of people, constantly evolving and learning the game, but I also then develop my own points of view. My track record would probably be better than not better in terms of this kind of stuff, but no one's 100% right in an evaluation of players, as everybody knows who does it.
Sure.
Even GMs and scouts, you're never 100% right. So it's just something that I really noticed on tape, that he was passive, and he has long arms, so he tended to reach a bit and started to lean forward at times. And that's another thing you got to be really careful of in the NFL, because you start to bend at the waist and you lose your base and your balance.
Which lunging is something that offensive linemen cannot do.
And he's not a lunger in a strict sense, but he's a bender at times. Some guys you clearly see they just lunge. And those guys, that can't happen. Yeah. He's not a lunger in that sense, but he uses his arms, and so therefore he kind of bends a little bit. Yeah. And, like I said, in the NFL you go against great pass rushers. I don't know who I haven't looked at the Titans schedule, so I don't know who they play this year. But, if you're playing the really good ones, a Bosa, a Myles Garrett, they're going to exploit that.
Yeah, absolutely. Greg Cosell of NFL Films is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. We're doing a live episode of The Install. You guys normally get it at 6 p.m. Central Time. You get it way earlier today, and we get to do it live. Always good to hang out with our buddy Greg. So with Alt, what did you like about the tape when you watched him? Because it sounds like Olo Fautanu from Penn State is your top tackle prospect.
I think that I really like the kid from Oregon State, Fuaga.
Okay.
I love that kid.
So let's start with him.
Yeah, he is really big. He's a really good athlete. He's nasty. He's physical. He's super competitive. I mean, in the run game, you saw him just, put guys into the ground. I love the way he played, and for his size, I thought he was a really good athlete. I guess at this point, having done Fautanu, having done Alt, having done Fuaga, having done the kid from Washington, Troy Fautanu, my sense is right now, and I'll probably see a little more of each guy, so I want people to understand that because this takes time, Buck. You know that. We've been working together for a long time. I want people to understand I'm not watching 20 plays. I'm watching 7, 8 games of these guys. I watch a lot of these guys. And I'm going to do a little more work, but I really like Fuaga. If someone said to me, okay, you have to make a list or else, I'd probably put Fautanu at the top right now.
Which is typically what I do to Greg. I'm holding a shiv under the table to make him give us a list.
So I'd put Fuaga at the top right now if I had to do that.
So the level of competition, because you're obviously watching a bunch of Pac-12 offensive linemen this year, not just the guys at the top, and as you work your way through before April's draft process, you'll continue to do so. The level of competition in the Pac-12, the depth and talent that they have across that league, or what remains of that league, in the trenches is something that really, really jumps off the tape.
Yeah, and a couple of things that you always notice when you watch offensive linemen, or I think you should notice, I've been taught to notice it, is, Fuaga was hardly ever on the ground. And if you see any player, really, any lineman, offense or defense on the ground, it's really tough to make plays on the ground.
Yeah.
So he was never on the ground. I mean, and I watched him, for instance, I did watch him when they played UCLA, when he went against Latu. And I love Latu. I mean, I think
who was speaking earlier today.
Yeah, I love Latu. And I did him last summer, and I've done a good amount of him this year already from 2023. So, I wanted to see his reps against Latu because now you're seeing two guys that are probably top 15, top 20 picks in the draft, and maybe even higher, depending on team needs and how the draft plays out. So, he was really good against Latu. So Fuaga really stood out to me. And one thing, Buck, I really liked about Fuaga, which I really like when I do this, is I didn't know anything about him. He was virgin territory for me. And I like when that's the case because, I don't like to see what other people think about guys before I watch them. But, of course, I don't live under a rock either, so stuff's out there.
Yeah.
But Fuaga, to me, was totally virgin territory. And I put the tape on, and I'm like, wow, this guy has all the traits that I think play at left tackle in this league. And actually he played right tackle, but he could play either one. And that's another point I want to make. He was the right tackle for 2 years at Oregon State. I don't believe there's a meaningful delineation anymore between right tackle and left tackle in the NFL. The only delineation is that left tackle is the blind side of the quarterback. But as far as facing pass rushers, the game has totally changed. There are big-time pass rushers on each side of the defense. Back 15, 20 years, it was, hey, he's got left tackle feet. This guy can't play left tackle. He doesn't have left tackle feet, so you got to put him at a right tackle. But, I mean, right now, you look at the guys, who line up on the left side of the defense. T.J. Watt, Bosa lines up there. Von Miller did. I think Von Miller may be done, but he lined up on that side. T.J. Watt lines up on that side. You're facing big-time pass rushers on the left side of the defense, so your right tackle has to be a really good pass protector. It's not a case of, it's just a left tackle. So I think that's an important delineation to make because Fuaga played right tackle. I personally think he could play left tackle if you felt that was important.
Before we talk about Fautanu, just because offensive line, I feel like it's such an important part of how you build your football team and how you go about finding success. As you have gone through, your entire career and learning how to scout and learning how to evaluate and things like that, how have you approached the offensive line? I know it's different from tackle to guard to center and things like that, but who would you credit in helping you learn?
Well, I've gotten to know a lot of O-line coaches through the years. There's one in particular that has been so good to me. We do Zoom calls in the off season, and I just try to keep learning.
Yeah.
Offensive line is a position that. And again, tackles are different than interior guys in terms of how you evaluate. When I started evaluating, I was way too focused on athleticism for interior guys. And then I kind of learned over the years that, it's great if a guy's a nice athlete. But at the end of the day, interior O-linemen, they just got to battle and compete. Now, there's technique, of course. There's always technique at every position. But at some point, you just got to battle and compete, and you got to get guys blocked. If you're facing Chris Jones, sure, you want to play with great technique, and that's the way coaches coach it. But you know what? Sometimes he defeats your technique, and then you've got to compete, and you just got to get him blocked by any means necessary.
Absolutely.
So but I've been very fortunate because and I've had guys who were offensive line guys tell me that I know more than I think I know, but I'm not necessarily, I don't feel when I watch offensive centers, for instance, that I can sit here and say, man, I know everything about playing the offensive center position. But like I said, I've had coaches and other people who played O-line in the league that I know well tell me I know way more than I think I know, but, so be it.
Kirby, I don't think anybody's ever told me that I know way more than I think I know in my entire life. I'm still waiting on that compliment at some point.
Right.
So let's talk about Troy Fautanu, the Oregon left tackle here.
Yeah.
6'4", 300.
No, he's from Washington.
Excuse me, Washington. Yeah. Oregon State is
Fuaga.
Yeah. 6'4", 320, coming out of Washington. The college football's best offensive line group in total. What do you see when you watch him on tape?
He's a fascinating guy. Now, here's a guy that really uses his hands. They're unrefined, but he uses them.
Yeah.
And he's violent and active with them. So he is a very proactive pass protector. He's very good at what we call the independent arm technique, which I'm sure he's been taught, where you take your inside arm and you just, if you feel that that the pass rusher is working toward the edge to challenge your edge, you just take your inside arm and hit his inside shoulder, and it's just almost like a quick strike, and then you pull it back so you don't lose balance. And all that does is it slows the pass rusher down. All you're trying to do is slow him down for half a beat. That's all you need. Don't forget, quarterbacks have to get rid of the ball theoretically in 2.5 seconds or less. So if you can just force that edge rusher to kind of have to recalibrate even for half a beat, that means a lot.
Yeah.
And he uses his hands. Like I said, I think he needs to be taught a little refinement of how to use his hands, but they are violent, they're active, they're quick. The issue for him, and he's 6'4", 320, which sounds, big, but he's built very compactly. It would not surprise me if a lot of O-line coaches see him as a guard and not a tackle. So that would be my sense. I think he could play tackle, but I think you'll get both sides of the coin on that one. Some guys will say, yes, he can transition as a tackle. There'll be other coaches who'll say, no, he's a guard. But I think he's a really good prospect.
When you talk about it's not just on the offensive lineman, that the quarterback, theoretically in a perfect world, 2.5 seconds is how, for example, ESPN judges stuff like pass rush win rate and pass blocking win rate, things like that. Brian Callahan has talked about protection as a holistic offensive problem. Quarterbacks, wide receivers,
without question,
offensive line, and I think that fans kind of get caught up in, no, this position group is solely responsible for protecting the quarterback, and that, given that the Titans are picking number 7 and that there will be elite talent all over the place, it's a conversation that's been going back and forth.
Let's think of it this way. You call a play, okay? Now, when you call a play, a pass play obviously is what we're talking. You call a pass play, there's a drop associated with that, with the quarterback. It's either a 3-step drop, a 5-step drop, a 7-step drop. There's timing associated with each one of those. If you call a 3-step drop play, you want the ball to be out in 1.5 seconds. If you call a 5-step drop play, you want the ball to be out in 2.1 seconds. If you go with a deep shot and it's 7-step drop, you want the ball to be out in 2.5 seconds. The routes have to time up with the drop of the quarterback.
Yeah.
The routes have to sync with the drop of the quarterback. How many times do we see, and I see it a meaningful number of times, where the quarterback drops back and he's ready to throw and the receivers have not completed their routes and he has nowhere to go with the football, and then the offensive line is blocking for the depth of the quarterback drop. They're not blocking for more than that, and then they get beat because they're blocking up to a certain point, and then people say, well, their left guard stinks. But there's a breakdown in the whole timing of the play, and I'm sure that's what Brian Callahan means. Everybody has to be involved. When you call that play, you expect the ball to come out. Now, is it going to come out 100% of the time? No, because there's a defense on the field too. But that's when you call a play, that's what you're expecting. And within that timing, not so much a 3-step drop, which you're not reading. You're not going through a big progression on a 3-step because in 1.5 seconds the ball has to come out. But once you get to 5-step timing, there's timing within that to go through a progression. So the routes still have to time up, not just the primary route, but the other routes that are part of the route concept and combination have to time up with all of that. And that's how everything works together.
Yeah. Greg, it's always great to see you, buddy. I'm so excited for the live show coming up on May the 3rd. For those of you who did not go last year, you missed out. I know a lot of people had FOMO once we sold out of tickets for the first time around. Again, May the 3rd. Doors open at 6 for you. Well, maybe don't buy Greg too many drinks before we start the live podcast. I, however, am open for business.
Right.
So we'll open the doors. You know, how I wade my way through setting Greg up, we'll determine the level of efficiency at that point. But doors open at 6. We'll start the show at 7. It's going to be at the Analog in the Hutton Hotel on May the 3rd. That's just a couple of days after the NFL draft.
It's that Friday after the draft.
It'll be fresh in everybody's minds. We'll be going through the entirety of the Titans draft class, whatever that looks like, if it's 7 picks where they currently have now or whatever the trades and situations like that yield. But I couldn't be more excited for the event. I can't wait to get back in front of everybody. Can't wait to have the audience back in front of us.
It'll be awesome. I'm really looking forward to it.
Always enjoy seeing you, my friend.
All right, Buck, thanks.
That's Greg Cosell of NFL Films. We'll keep the discussion going with some more prospect talk. Live from the NFL Combine, our coverage presented by Two Rivers Ford. I'm Buck Reising. This 104.5 The Zone.